This episode's a little walkie-talkie with Michael J. Gelb, author of Walking Well and like a billion other fantastic books. Today, he's gonna teach us how to walk in a more natural, comfortable, and connected way. Walking together with the ground, the air, your life force, each other, great minds like Edison and Da Vinci, and your animal within. Join me on this walk with Michael J. Gelb. Let's start with a little philosophy question, one that they've definitely been asking for centuries and millennia, right? What is walking? It sounds like a stupid question, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah. It's the quintessentially human experience. It's part of what distinguishes Homo sapiens. Our humanity is profoundly linked with our upright posture, first of all. That frees our hands and allows us to make tools and make incredible changes in our environment for both better and obviously for worse, but definitely for better. It also allowed amazing brain development, which is why we can have a conversation like this with technology that connects us instantaneously around the world. So it all began with rising up from our four-legged status to a primate status to our fully upright posture. And then it wasn't really valuable for survival to just stand there. So you had to walk. And what's amazing to think about is up until the last about 120 years, the main way that people got anywhere was by walking. So, we take, for now, we take the idea of cars, obviously, and boats and trains and stuff. I mean, boats have been around for a long time, but most people got to wherever they were going by walking there. Most people didn't have a horse or a horse and buggy. They walked. People walked to see their friends, to tend their gardens, to get water. They walked and walked and walked. So it's a huge part of our humanity. And many people have lost touch with it because they're sitting at a desk all day in front of a computer. So we have to revisit what it means to really walk naturally. And that's what walking well is all about.
Yeah, and you also say in that book that we never walk alone. We are not the only player or piece in this puzzle. So yeah, talk more about that.
Sure. Well, of course, that's a wonderful song. You'll never walk alone. When you walk through a storm, keep your head up high. And it actually turns out to be the best way to walk is with a nice upright poise and a lengthening spine. But it also reflects the idea that is really one of the essences of the book, which is to feel in the way that you walk connected to the earth, to the air that we all breathe, to all of life as we walk through our own lives. So it's a different way of walking than many of us grew up with. People, are taught stand on your own 2 feet, except that turns out to be impossible because your feet are part of you and you always stand on the ground. And when you start to shift your paradigm about being supported by the earth when you walk, you feel more connected. And that's what people want, is to feel connected. And then you don't feel alone, even if you're by yourself. You feel connected to something greater than your separate self. And that's a wonderful feeling.
And then if you walk in certain environments, namely natural environments, I'm imagining that feeling of connection increases even further.
Sure. Well, that's, there's lots and lots of research now demonstrating overwhelmingly that one of the absolute best things you could do for yourself on every level is to walk in nature. People experience improvements in their immunity. They get better ideas. They feel inspired. They feel revitalized. And there's lots of anecdotal evidence for this through the course of human history about the power of walking in the woods. It's the key to inspiring genius after genius after genius. And obviously, we wouldn't need to write a book at this point to tell people, go walk in nature. It's pretty well established. There's a zillion articles about the benefits of it. Our book is more about how you walk every day and how to get the same benefits that you get if you're walking in a perfect natural environment when you're walking to your office or to the supermarket or to your kitchen or into a business meeting. So, yeah, go walk in nature whenever you can. I do. But what we're really about is translating that sense of flow and connectedness and vitality into every step you take.
Speaking of steps, what would be the first step in that process? I imagine we got to stop doing certain things or change the way we think about walking, but I'll let you go for it.
Well, you're doing pretty well. Like, first, it's a question. Just question the way you think about walking. So, in the book, we take our readers through some contemplation about some of the conditioning and programming we all got about how you're supposed to walk. And a lot of it is gender based. Men are supposed to walk like a man. That was a famous song. And walk like Clint Eastwood or John Wayne or some cool role model, tough guy. And women grew up with the idea that you have to walk like a lady or a runway model, which creates a lot of dysmorphia, a lot of great discomfort with the sense of ease in one's body. And of course, now we have a lot of people who are trying to throw out those old gender ideas, but they're still in reaction to them, and their walk is still influenced by them or their reaction to them. And none of those things are walking naturally. Now, here's the really good news is your body knows how to walk naturally. So you're correct. The first thing we have to do is just examine what are some of our preconceptions, our conditioning, our habits, our constraints and limitations, and let them go. And then we can explore the natural biomechanics of walking. And in the book, we take our readers through it, literally a step-by-step process. And I can tell it to you, but the challenge is if you just hear it and understand it intellectually, which is easy to understand, you might think you know it, but you don't. Because the real brilliance, where my co-author came up with this sequence of exploration that helps you rediscover your natural walk. And so it begins with this questioning. And then the next step is to explore what it means to just let your feet come down as they want to without any preconceived ideas. But you have to actually go out and do that, explore it, feel it. We have you write a note in your notebook and talk about it with a friend. Then you can try the next step, which is to begin to observe the pattern almost everyone has, which is to brace for impact before every step. What we've noticed is pretty much everyone, including us, has a conditioned habit of slightly, sometimes not so slightly, tightening the ankle joint, flexing it unnecessarily just before the foot comes down. And your walk will change forever when you start unbracing your foot and your ankle with every step. People tell us, "Oh my God, my foot spread out. It felt all spongy. I felt way more connected to the earth. I felt way more support. Walking became so much more comfortable." But you have to actually experiment with it and see how it works. And what you'll find when you do is that if you're a human, like other humans, we're all designed to walk in a way that's similar to the way a bear walks, because bears and humans are plantigrades versus your dog or your cat, which is a digitigrade. They walk effectively on their toes. We walk on the whole sole of our foot. And one of the secrets of walking naturally is to let your whole foot caress the ground with every step, to peel along as you walk. So if you've ever peeled a banana peel, that's the way your foot is naturally designed to roll, to peel along the ground. And we guide you how to do that. So that's just the first chapter of the book. You'll already be walking differently. And then we go from there to help you deepen that and support that. And so I got to tell you, I just did a seminar.
Uh-huh.
I did my first weekend seminar. There's a wonderful place nearby called the Omega Institute. They sponsor beautiful seminars. People come from all over the world. So I ran this weekend program, and it was better than I thought it would be. I mean, I've taught this to lots of people, but it was the first time I had a whole weekend. And a woman came up to me at the end of it, and she was kind of in tears, but they were tears of relief and joy. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "Well, I've had pain in my legs for years." And I realized, I told them this idea. Most people think about walking. One of the preconceived ideas people have is that your heel should strike the ground first and then your toe should come down. So I point out that it's a sort of violent image to strike the ground with your heel. Strike is to hit. It's a forceful, not particularly pleasant thing to do, especially with every step that you take. And she said she realized that she'd been, trying to get her 10,000 steps and trying to walk for exercise, and she'd been pounding the pavement. And she realized, that she'd been jarring her bones with every step she was taking because she had this sense of effort and trying, unnatural walking, which unfortunately, I mean, I'm looking out my window right now. I see people walking by. That's what they're doing. They're pounding the pavement because they want to get exercise. So she said something really wonderful. She said, after you talked about caressing the ground with my feet and connecting with the ground and feeling supported, she said, I apologized to my feet. She said, and for the first time in years, my pain is gone. My feet, my legs just feel good. And I thought that was pretty cool.
No, it's the same with any relationship or business or creative act. The more you force it and you pound it, try to get it out, the more
Right.
painful and probably worse it's gonna be. Another thing you talk about, which is sort of connected to this peeling, is we tend to think we're walking forward, but that's not really the full piece of the picture. We're actually I can't even explain it. Can you explain this
Yes, I
whole
can.
idea of how we move? We're not moving backwards, but we're moving. Yeah. I can't even do it. You do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why I'm your guest. That's my job. Don't worry, I got you
Yeah.
covered. So again, a lot of us were programmed. We have this idea: stride forward towards your goals. Walk
hmm
briskly forward towards where you're headed. And there's wisdom in that. I mean, it's good to set goals. It's good to look where you're going. It's good to have a goal or objective. Make a very clear one. But biomechanically, it's a dysfunctional way to actually walk, to stride forward. Because if you overstride, which most people do, especially when they're trying to go for an exercise walk, when you overstride, you throw yourself out of balance. You put undue pressure on your lower back. Your head tends to lean back, which compresses your vertebrae, starting with your cervical vertebrae and then all the way down your spine. And every step is more jarring and less efficient. So, natural walking, if you watch a bear, bears don't do that, for example. They're natural plantigrades. The bear does what we humans can relearn how to do. So, right now, I'm going to take a little step. And the way I do that is I peel off my back foot. And as I peel off my back foot, and just before my toe comes off the ground, what's happened is now my weight has now transferred to my other foot, it's in this case, my left foot. So now my weight's fully on my left foot, and my right foot just flows forward as I peel off my left foot, which has become the back foot. And then it just floats underneath me, and now I'm peeling off my right foot. So it changes everything when you get this sense of effortless support and flow from the earth beneath you and behind you instead of where you think you're going. You are going forward, but you go forward by getting the power from underneath and behind you.
No, and once again, it connects to all these other things we hear in other fields, like in business. You can't do it alone. You can try to do it alone. You can try to make a movie alone or make a company or a product or something, but
Right.
you can't really. So in this case, it's sort of the same. We're trying to walk alone and try to like, I can do it. But the more you kind of let the other team players play along, particularly the ground, but everything else, whoa, you're saying we can also actually walk faster and more efficiently that way too. Not just easier and with more comfort, but also we might actually get to the office quicker.
Well, so my co-author, I've known this guy for 40 years. He's a movement genius. He's a really brilliant guy. He's a scholarship gymnast, a professional modern dancer, teacher of the Alexander technique, a great Aikidoist, Tai Chi guy. And he's been focused on walking for decades because he just had this epiphany, which obviously I have too, that all of these wonderful disciplines, the wisdom of them all and the benefits of them all can be gained just by walking more naturally. So he lives in New Mexico in a place called Coyote. I used to live in Santa Fe. And out where he lives, there's this famous slope. It's about 4.5 miles, this beautiful red rock. It's called the Pedernal. And it's where Georgia O'Keeffe, the great painter, used to walk and paint. So my buddy Bruce moved there when he was 40, and he used to walk up this sacred trail. Well, now he's 74, and he walks up this same trail faster and easier at 74 than he did when he was 40.
Yeah, that breaks all the freaking stereotypes.
Well, that's what we're about. We are blowing away stereotypes of aging, and which is, it's a bunch of yeah, if you're unconscious, if you're conditioned and programmed, you will get worse. Everybody gets injured, everybody has trauma, and if you don't address it, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a methodology, the default setting is you'll decline. However, I'll give you a really practical example. Here's a really practical thing to begin doing whatever age you are. And it's to stand on one leg every day for about a minute on each leg. And once you can do that comfortably, try it with your eyes closed. And here's the reason why. When you're walking in a natural gait, 40% of the time you're balanced on one leg. That's what walking is. 40% of the time you are balancing on one leg. Now, one of the things we know is that most people, as they get older, lose what's called walking steadiness. And the reason they lose walking steadiness is they're no longer able to balance on one leg. So start practicing that now. It's never too late, but the earlier you practice these things, and that's why, for example, the Tai Chi is so great, because in Tai Chi, you're spending a lot of time shifting your weight. You're on one leg doing a move, and then you're shifting and your weight is completely on the other leg. So you're extenuating the time that you spend on one leg, in other words, balancing on one leg, so that you are refining and strengthening that ability as you get older.
Yeah. And Tai Chi and Qigong and Aikido and all these arts are things you've been doing for decades as well. I was going to say long before this walking thing, but no, I guess walking always comes first for all of us.
You have to walk. You have to walk to the dojo. You have to walk to the Aikido class.
Yeah.
You have to walk to the Tai Chi class.
What are some other things from, say, Tai Chi and Qigong or Aikido or any of these other arts, some principles from these that we can use to help us walk better?
Sure. Well, when I teach Aikido, which I've been doing for many years, and when I teach Tai Chi or Qigong, the first thing I teach people is how to stand. Because if your stance isn't good, your Tai Chi or your Aikido is not going to be so good. So the same thing is true in walking. It really helps to know how to stand. So I have evolved this acronym to help people remember how to stand. It is stand ease. So S stands for smile, and everything changes for the better when you smile. T stands for relax your tongue and your mouth, which helps to create more tone in your whole polyvagal system. In other words, it helps you relax. A stands for align around the vertical axis. N stands for natural like a willow tree. D stands for distribute your weight evenly. So that's stand, easy to remember. Then ease, the E stands for exhale. A lot of people hold their breath a lot of times when they're standing and walking. So exhale, let your breath go. The A and E stands for awaken your awareness. So be aware of being aware. The S stands for soften everything, because you want to be, once you are aligned and you want your skeleton to support you, not any extra work with your muscles or your connective tissue. You just let it all hang. That's why you see the best Aikido and Tai Chi masters are completely relaxed. They look like rag dolls. And then you interact with them and you find yourself thrown across the room and you have no idea how they did it. And the way they did it is they channeled the whole power of the earth and used their whole being, and the energy went right through them because there's no tension, and you're in orbit. It's pretty amazing. So you can practice that yourself just by starting to soften everything when you stand. And then the final E in E stands for expand. So what you'll find is as you stand this way, your energy expands, your awareness expands. And imagine if you just spent even a minute, at the beginning of each day, just reviewing stand E's before you went for your walk, before you walked into the office. It makes a profound difference, and it's so simple and so elegant.
All the other animals walk naturally. You talked about the bear and how we walk like bears. And you mentioned a couple other animals in the book. I imagine you've got a bunch more that you didn't mention in that book. Can you talk more about how we can emulate some of these animals, or perhaps maybe we should stop emulating some of them?
Well, it's not even a question of, I mean, obviously, humans throughout history have modeled themselves over animal powers. It's something that is very appealing to humanity. When we ask our students, what appeals to you about the animal energy, they say, well, they're natural and they're free and they're powerful and they're innocent and they're filled with energy and life. And people, we want to be that way. And the way to be that way is to move like them. But what's really fascinating is it's not just some mystical meditation thing like, oh, I'm going to visualize a crane or an eagle or a heron. It turns out that biomechanically, our whole upper body is very similar to the upper body of a crane or an eagle. So instead of thinking of two separate shoulders, like a thing from here and an arm there, if you start to think of yourself as having one big, beautiful wingspan, which anatomically is very similar to the wingspan of an eagle or a crane, it changes your feeling of your back and gives you the sense of grace and ease, and it opens up your breathing. And we guide people to do this beautiful crane movement. I like to do it. My neighbors are used to me looking a little strange. I go for a walk, and then every now and then I stand on one leg and I make this beautiful crane movement. And I'm practicing this graceful, easy flow. And it just feels so good. Even doing it right now while we're doing this podcast, it feels great. So I like to do things that feel really good. I like to teach people how to do things that just make walking feel better. So when you learn to make the crane movement, for example, you will feel more open, you will feel more relaxed, you'll feel more at ease, you'll have more balance. And that's what people want. So we bring the animals to help them get it.
How about technology? One of the benefits of walking, I imagine, assuming you're not walking with your phone, is you're away from the screen. You've got this bigger, wider, giant, endless screen in front of you, the sky and the earth and everything. So it's going to change the way our eyes and our neck and everything is positioned. The content is different. But yeah, talk about maybe the smartphone a little bit, as well as earbuds, things we're plugging our ears up with. There are good things and bad things about these, of course. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this, particularly with walking?
Yeah. Well, soon we'll have an app for walking well.
Right? Can't escape it.
Yeah, well, it's cool. I mean, so a lot of times I just shut my phone off. I put it in my back pocket because I do want to record how much I've walked, and I measure my walking steadiness and all that stuff. So there's a real
Yeah.
great, the data we can get is amazing and really helpful. Other times I listen to a podcast when I go for a walk. One of the things I
Me
love to do
too.
is I play my favorite music and I dance along when I walk. So it's not like this is not some religion, where you have to just be in nature. We want to take advantage of all the innovations and just
Yeah.
make sure that we are the ones who are making the choice of how we use them rather than being manipulated and used by them, which is sadly the goal of many of the developers who are foisting these things upon humanity. So it takes discipline to be able to not be addicted to your phone.
Yeah. And that seems to be another overarching theme in your book too, is regaining this awareness and consciousness of our behavior of our life. Sure, it's okay to walk like a lady if that's what you really want to do and that's what feels right, but it probably won't. Or to wear this kind of clothing or that kind of clothing, or to listen to your music or podcast or not. Yeah, some of these things might be okay, but we're doing it unconsciously too much. So it seems like you're kind of waking us up to like, okay, what is going on?
Correct. That is, thank you. You just kind of summed up the real essence of what the book is about. Is walking is a metaphor for waking up, for being more aware, for being more present in your life, for feeling more exhilaration, more energy, more joy, more inspiration, for being more of who you truly are with every step.
And a lot of these great people, some of which you studied deeply, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, but also Einstein, Edison, I get them mixed up, and a bunch of others, musicians, scientists, artists, novelists, had this deep habit of and love of walking. So yeah, it might be fun to kind of bring this back to your previous works of with Leonardo da Vinci and those others and see how did they walk, or what was their relationship with this, and who were some of these people?
Yeah, well, thank you for mentioning that because so I guess what is this? Whoa, it's a long time ago. 26 years ago, I released this book called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. And it struck a chord with a lot of people because Leonardo's generally globally regarded as perhaps the greatest genius who ever lived, the ultimate Renaissance person, and an archetype for human power and potentiality. He was a genius as both a scientist and as an artist. So, and I knew he loved to walk. I knew that he took a daily stroll through wherever he was living. It's a part of what they do in Italy. It's called the passeggiata. You take a stroll around, you greet people, and Vasari, the first art historian, records that Leonardo walked with infinite grace. That people commented on just how beautiful it was to just even watch him walk. So when we started work on this book, I started to go through all my Leonardo notes and information, whatever, looking specifically for what did he write about walking? What did he say specifically about it? And it was almost too good to be true when I discovered, but it's really true, that he invented the pedometer. He invented the machine for measuring the number of steps you took. It's, it's so cool. I found a picture of it from his notebooks. And then one of my other favorite geniuses of all time, Thomas Jefferson, came up with this pretty cool idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Walking, he said, was by far the best exercise. It was his main exercise, and he also invented a pedometer. So when you look through the history of genius from every walk of life, and you mentioned both Einstein and Edison, they love to walk. Einstein used to walk. There's a trail you can walk in his footsteps at Princeton University, where he would just walk every day. Edison used to walk outside his laboratories. He would create these beautiful nature gardens and walk through them every day to get inspiration. Poets, philosophers, musicians, novelists. A book about geniuses who did not like to walk would be a very small book.
Yeah. How about walking alone versus walking with others, say family, friends, business partners, girlfriends, whatever? Talk about those differences.
Sure. Well, even though we said you'll never walk alone, it's good to walk solo. It's good to practice what you learn in the book on your own. So you can just focus on your own walk and you're not distracted by having to be with another person. So we recommend practice this by yourself first, then go for walks with others for all sorts of reasons, just to connect with others. It's a great way to get out of the office. I teach my CEO clients, I've been doing this for years. Get out for a walk, take your team out for a walk. If you have an issue or a problem, don't meet face to face across the table. Get out and go for a walk. Walk shoulder to shoulder. Now you're facing the same direction. You get into a rhythm. your expanded, your consciousness expands and opens because you're outside and the sky seems limitless. And then your thinking becomes more open and limitless. And you make a connection because you tend to flow in the same rhythm as you walk. And all of a sudden, whatever was such a big issue seems to naturally resolve itself.
Oh, and back to earlier, you mentioned how some of these famous people walked specific paths that we can actually walk ourselves. That's an amazing thing. What a weird literal walk through history. What a magical, beautiful experience that could be to be like, "Oh, I'm walking where Edison walked, or where I don't know Nikola Tesla walked, or whoever. Even your friend walking where your friend walks in New Mexico is like one day when if and when he passes, you're like, oh, I'm still here with him. So this is a cool thing we could do. But I imagine it's not only actual famous walks that we can do to reawaken this sort of this magic or beauty. We can
Yeah.
maybe make other walks. We can create some sort of sacred walk ourselves.
Well, we have a whole chapter about how to do that. And it's it's enough to keep you walking for years and years to come and just having we just people just oh my god, let me try this one. And coming back to what you said though about walking in the footsteps of geniuses, it is a really cool thing to do. When I was writing How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, I literally walked in Leonardo's footsteps and I could really feel his energy. It was wild. Just I could understand him in a much more profound way. There's also walks, sacred walks or pilgrimages that people take. Every religion, every spiritual tradition seems to feature a pilgrimage of some sort. There's sacred mountains that you walk around. There are sacred sites that you make a pilgrimage to. There's the one of my clients, a CEO, a great guy. Uh, he just went on the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, where you walk 20 miles a day and you're walking in the footsteps of all these pilgrims who are on this spiritual quest. And he was great. He was getting to go to fly to Spain and he called me up. He's like, I need a walking lesson. I want to get more out of every step. I did my best to help him out. And it's great. So again, it's the same point. It's great to walk in Leonardo da Vinci's footsteps, but if you walk naturally, you'll be accessing your own genius more with every walk you take. It's great to go to Santiago de Compostela or to Mount Kailash or any of the sacred places in the world, but you can bring the sacred to every walk you take, and it's easier to do when you walk naturally. So that's another one of the underlying messages of the book.
Yeah. Another thing I've noticed, this is not about walking, but it might be, you might reconnect it, is you're someone who laughs a lot, especially at your age. You're always laughing, even in your interviews, and I'm loving that. A lot of people stop laughing, it seems. They're not smiling and laughing, and you're like just fully embracing it. And I'm loving that. How did you I guess you don't know how you got to be the way you are, but I guess some of these things you've been doing might have helped.
So I love that question. Uh, my sense is that we don't need a reason for joy. I mean, it helps to have a reason. I prefer happy things to happen rather than lousy things. I'm affected when bad. I'm not always laughing and happy. Sometimes I'm very sad. But my default setting is joy and laughter. And why am I that way? Well, I'd say that if you read, that you have to read all 18 of my books to figure that out.
I tried.
But part of what I love about Walking Well is, and part of what inspired me to co-author this with my friend Bruce Spertman, is I felt like walking was a way, the metaphor and the practice of walking would allow me to share so much of what I have learned in a lifetime of exploring how we can be more conscious and more creative and more compassionate and more joyful.
Yeah. I guess we don't need to get into all the other benefits of walking, but one that I do want to touch on is creativity. You are a prolific writer. You've written, yeah, you mentioned 18 books. How has this changed your creative process, or how has it been a part of your process along the way?
Well, really simple thing is I was blessed, first of all, Early on in my career, I met a genius, a guy named Tony Buzan. He invented mind mapping. He taught it to me. We used to go for walks together. Whenever we would teach, we'd go for a long walk every day after we would teach a seminar to corporate leaders all over the world. We'd go for a walk and we would reflect on what we learned from the day, and we would coach each other. It's an amazing opportunity because he was just a charismatic, brilliant guy. So I learned the principles of how to think creatively very early on. And I embodied them. I practiced them. I used those principles that Tony taught me to write my master's thesis. And that became published as my first book, which has now been in print for 43 years. So that's how I became an author. And I started to realize, oh, the nature of creativity is just like we were talking about before. It's just like the nature of walking. You don't have to do it. You don't have to stride forward. You don't have to make an inordinate effort. You just kind of have to show up and go with the flow and feel the earth and breathe the air and invoke it. And once you get this, it's absolutely true. And obviously, I learned this. That's the principle of Tai Chi. That's how we do Aikido. So it's all that brings together everything I've been studying and teaching. It's all about accessing the universal creative power, which is free. It's free. It's accessible to everybody. You just have to know how to ask.
This makes every day and every moment so much lighter and easier. You mentioned how we brace with our foot. We're bracing with our breath, with our life, everything we do. We're like, "Arr!" And I feel like that a lot sometimes. And so, yeah, what you're saying is we can kind of unbrace in general and just be there with the earth, or be there with our eyes, be there with our imagination, or whatever it is out there, and then just show up and enjoy the ride.
You just expressed the essence of it very beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. And if people want to get in touch with you or learn more, where do they go? You got a few different websites, so spit them out.
Yeah, start with michaelgelb.com, Gelb, michaelgelb.com. That's my mothership main website that has a ton of free stuff on it. And if you sign
Yeah.
up for my free newsletter, which we don't send out that often, you will be able to keep up with the various offerings we have around the world. And for people who want to go straight to seeing some instructional videos on how to walk, you can go to walkingwell.com, which is the website for the book. So we tried to write the book so you could just read it and write it so clearly you could just do the practices and get the message without any pictures or videos. But then we thought we'll create this free website and put a ton of stuff on it to help you as much as we can. So that's walkingwell.com, or you could start with michaelgelb.com or go to both.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's an honor to talk to you. I'm going to take this conversation in with me through the reading of the rest of your books, hearing your voice and seeing your smile and laughter as I read them. But for now, it's time for me to go on a little walk.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you so much.